So we know that the clutches of people that want to eradicate the fertility and sterilize kids and totally eradicate their sexual function, we know in the UK their grip is slightly looser than it used to be now that the Tavistock is closing. Can you imagine during lockdown when everyone's cheering on the NHS, that we'd be cheering that a service for children is actually closing? It's so remarkable, and that will be to the work of Dr. Heather Brunskell-Evans, who's here with us today. Transgender Trend, headed up by Stephanie Davis-Arai. And not to forget Dr. Marcus Evans, not Doctor, and Susan Evans, who both whistle-blew, and Dr. David Bell. And then we've had her here before, she isn't here today, but I'm sure we would all like to cheer our thanks to the bravery of Keira Bell. She didn't just take this fight that was so personal for her. She didn't just fight it for herself. But I can't imagine going from, I'm in a place where I want to make these absolutely catastrophic changes to my body, to, I think I've done the wrong thing, to, I'm going to be public about it and try and stop anybody else doing it. It's just such a remarkable young woman. And for years to come, we will say her name. She's been spoken about in America. So Keira Bell, thank you very much. Okay. Dr. Heather Brunskell-Evans.
Well, thank you so much for letting me speak, and I literally was not going to speak today. I have been persuaded to do so, so here are my scrappy notes that I've just written. So the thing that's on my mind this week is obviously the closing of the Tavistock. It's I think we've got some wonderful men over here shouting, and so the thing that's really significant this week has been, for me personally and for the children of our nation, has been the closing of the Tavistock, something which would have been unthinkable a very short period of time ago, even though a grassroots movement has been going since 2016 to achieve this end. So the Gender Identity Development Services, I think people will know, are going to be in regional centres. So the Gender Identity Development Service at the Tavistock, which I'll call the GIDS, is closed. New services will be provided. Now I'm going to come back to the new services in a moment, but the main thing about them is that they're going to be connected with the mental health services for children. That's the really important thing. I'm going to come back to that. So people who are now becoming alive to the GIDS and are horrified by what's been going on continually ask the question, how was this allowed to happen? In Great Britain, in a liberal democracy, in the National Health Service, how was it possible that there was an ideological takeover of the GIDS? We've been, and they say, nobody told us so. Well, people have been trying to blow the whistle about this for a number of years. But the reason why, there are many reasons why this has been allowed to happen, but today I'm going to pinpoint the ideological lobby groups which have been actually at the heart of policy making at the GIDS, which are mermaids, and let us not forget gendered intelligence, which actually in a way has had more of an influence, because gendered intelligence is allied with queer theory, and queer theory has been at the heart of the GIDS, and it's been there in plain sight. All you need to do is read the articles by Bernadette Wren, and she tells everybody that this is the case. People haven't been taking much notice of that. So, this is probably going to be a little bit boring, but I need to get it in about the power, about how power can go to the heart of our institutions. How can that be allowed? So, Kemi Badenoch wrote an article for the Times today, I think, about the ways in which the minute you give stakeholders, you decide which stakeholders are important, and then you bring stakeholders in to help you make the decisions. That's what's happened at the Tavistock. It's anti-democratic. The stakeholders were Stonewall and the two lobby groups that I've just talked about. Other stakeholders, for example, parents who were very concerned and frightened, and there's lots of data, which I have, which is online at the moment, for people to see how parents attempted to go to the Tavistock years ago and say how disturbed they were, how frightened they were about what was happening to children, and they were ignored. So there were some stakeholders which were privileged, and some stakeholders which were not only ignored, but treated as retrograde dinosaurs who didn't understand that the latest concept of social justice, underpinned by queer theory, is the best thing since sliced bread. So let me look at my scribbled notes. I think I'm on page 2. So, what is happening now, of course, is that there was a silence when the GIDS was closed. From mermaids, they've just written a statement in the past few hours. Gendered intelligence wrote almost immediately, but both of them are claiming that the win is theirs. It's quite astonishing, but I'm probably less astonished by this now than I would have been, say, 5 or 6 years ago, when I somehow had a faith or a belief that I know, don't laugh, that politicians were, on the whole, truthful and straight talking. I know. Some of them are perhaps still, I don't know. But the directors of these organizations are actually polished politicians now. They dissemble when they can, and they are dissembling about this. The thing that they've picked on is the issue that they did complain about the GIDS, was that there was a long waiting list. And they are saying that thankfully when the services go to different regional centres, more children will be able to be seen to. But of course what they don't say, that they incited the long waiting lists in the first place by going into schools and persuading unsuspecting teachers, head teachers and children that there's such a thing as a trans child, and you know, and the usual stuff which I'm going to repeat, that boys who like pink and girls who like blue, etc., might actually be trans. That has got a hold of society like wildfire. So, and I think accounts for the exponential rise of girls wanting to transition, and there are all sorts of reasons why it would girls, not boys, but I can't go into that for the moment. So, I can't read my own writing on that one, so I'll skip that point. Many people are now being persuaded that something terrible happened at the Tavistock. But what I want to say is, for those people who are extremely worried that what is going to be reproduced in the regional centres is what has actually been happening in the Tavistock, I have a faith that this will not happen, and I'll tell you why. Because what the very prop that has held up the GIDS and what holds up gendered intelligence and mermaids is the idea that there is such a thing as a transgender child, that transgenderism, wherever it happens to be, is outside of the psychological, the social, and the political. It just is. Children were born in the wrong body. Now the services are going to be attached to mental health services, and the whole child is going to be looked at. That's the first premise of the change, and we will keep them to that. We're all going to be here for years to come if they don't keep to that. And that is more than just a difference in policy. It's a really structural and conceptual change, because it shifts the truth, in inverted commas, that lobby groups have been able to, the fiction I should say, that lobby groups have been able to persuade people that it is true, is that there is such a thing as inherent transgender, rather than that identifying as transgender is a product of all sorts of other things that's going on in the child's life, including the politicization that mermaids and gendered intelligence have brought about. So, we've come a long way. It's been years and years, and we've been vilified. Those people who've been saying that the Tavistock GIDS should close have been vilified, and here we are. It is absolutely astonishing. One more thing, I know I should stop talking now. For those people, sorry, I've probably been talking for ages. One more thing, thanks, is that for those people in the general population that are new to this, they think this is just an issue of the GIDS, but it's not. Joined up thinking has to go on. There's a relationship between what was happening there, what is happening in women's prisons, what is happening in women's sports. And people are not joining up the dots of the relationship between those things. The relationship is, once you persuade society, which society has been persuaded of, that you can be born in the wrong body, that you can actually be the other sex, then that is the gateway to men invading women's spaces, because they can say, I was born this way. There's nothing complicated about it. I just truly am a woman. So the whole thing is connected. So we've got a long way to go to join up those dots. And I would like to do that work in solidarity with other people who are here and those who are not. And finally, I'd like to thank Posey for being part of the structural change which is being brought about in our country at the moment, and which is making us Turf Island. So thank you, Posey. Thank you. Thanks for my name.
Heather Brunskell-Evans, pioneer, outspoken woman. Okay, so you're not allowed to talk about your penis, okay?
All right.
Or anybody else's penis.
Can I sing about it?
No.
Anyway. Hi everyone, it's Menno. Right, various women have spoken about looking at the bigger picture and seeing the connections between various things that are happening. I want to draw attention to some of the individual cogs that have caused us to be where we are today. And one of those cogs is Dr. Polly Carmichael. She took on the role to lead GIDS at the Tavistock in 2009. 2009. The early intervention study, as in experimenting on kids with powerful drugs that castrate men, they call it an early intervention study. That started in 2011. That's 11 years ago. In 2012, Russell Viner, who is a professor and a hormone specialist who worked on the early intervention study, said publicly in the press, we are dealing with the unknown. In 2015, Dr. Polly Carmichael herself said, it was disingenuous to claim that puberty blockers were fully reversible. That was 2015, and they knew what they were doing. She also acknowledged in 2015 that most prepubescent children will outgrow their gender dysphoria when they go through puberty. They knew, and yet they plowed on. In her experience, she said, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this, she said these children are more likely to be LGB than T. And yet they plowed on with a program to trans away the gay. If that was known then and acknowledged publicly, why did they go ahead? Why did they think it was a good thing? She even says in 2015, there's quite a bit of talk these days about does social transitioning help, or does that even lock them into their dysphoria? She said in 2015, it impacts a child and makes it harder for them to desist or change their mind. This was all known. So what I would like to see is full-blown inquiries and having these people exposed and having them held to account. After the Second World War, there were various legal actions to hold people to account. They had the Nuremberg trials specifically to focus on the medics and the doctors and how they experimented during or in the concentration camps. I want to see something similar here, where we have mermaids, gendered intelligence, Stonewall, all of them, all the individuals named and held to account. On that note, there are incredible people that have already, most of them have already been named. I'll put a list together. So this is specifically about the whole GIDS stuff that we have to thank for that place closing down next spring. So Sue Evans, thank you. Marcus Evans, thank you. Sonia Appleby, thank you. David Bell, thank you. Kirsty Entwistle, thank you. All those clinicians who wrote to The Guardian and didn't get their letter published, thank you. All those clinicians who quit, thank you. Stephanie Davis, Arai, and Shelley from Transgender Trend, thank you. Kira Bell and Mrs. A, thank you. And you can see this name was already on my list. Heather Brunskell-Evans, thank you. By the way, we have the same hairdresser. Lucy Benneman, thank you. Yes. The BBC Newsnight team that investigated GIDS, thank you. And a big thank you to Graham Linehan, who went on national TV and called this out years ago. Thank you to the LGBT Alliance, and thank you so much, Hilary Cass. Yeah. All these people together, this is what Stunning and Brave looks like. Now I'm going to sound a bit sanctimonious, but this is also what the right side of history looks like. And we are 100% on that side. Absolutely 100%. We are not right-wing extremists. We are not whiny Karens. We are not out-of-touch boomers. We're the ones calling out this nonsense. We're the ones standing up for the reality. Women, for lesbians, gays, bisexuals, for children, for safeguarding, for evidence-based healthcare. We've got this right. And we'll root this craziness out across the UK, across Europe, across the pond, and down under. Because not only is turfery right, it's global. Yeah! We've got to keep turfing. We've got to keep turfing, yeah. Too many people are lost in woo. So here's what we've all got to do. We've got to keep, yeah, turfing.
Thank you, Mr Menno. Are there anyone else who's waiting? Here in a minute, okay. Let me. Oh, you've got your own mic.
I have.
Oh. Come and stand over there a little bit. Where do you want me?
There, perfect.
Okay, I'm going to be quick because I can't stand up for very long, so that's good news for everyone at the end of the day. Hi everyone, my name's Claire. I've got my own YouTube channel. It's called ClaireFeminist. Do have a look. Particularly if you're interested in safeguarding, there are loads and loads of videos about safeguarding and how to challenge the gender cult. And I just want to celebrate the fact that we got that incredible historic news about the Tavistock and Portman gender identity service for children closing this week, which is just absolutely brilliant. And thank God for Dr. Hilary Cass. We weren't expecting her to close them down right now, but actually if you read the interim review, she does say in it that we need a fundamentally different service model. This is where all of you come in, because that fundamentally different service model, I'm talking to Heather Brunskell-Evans about the Tavistock, I love it. That fundamentally different service model will in part be influenced by the things that are said at the board meetings of your local NHS Foundation Trust, at your local health and wellbeing boards, which are run by your local authorities. You must get involved at a local level and make them defend the choices they are making with a limited budget. They've got a limited budget and they've got to fund cancer care, they've got to fund maternity care, they've got to deal with, you know, emergency departments that are completely overwhelmed, and now they're going to have to fund the regional gender centres. And we know that the evidence base is very poor and of very low quality. It's going to be very difficult for them to argue that they should be giving money to a service that has very poor, very low quality evidence in support of it. So get involved locally. I'm going to do some videos about how exactly to do that in your local area. If you want to know more, watch my videos or get in touch, send me a message. I'm Claire OT on Twitter. Sorry?
Channel going?
It's ClaireFeminist. So thanks very much, and thanks Kellie-Jay for giving us all a platform to speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Welcome, my love. Well done.